Superman is the most comic book movie ever. I don't know, is it? I've heard Watchmen's pretty comic booky. All right, let's check it out.
James Gunn's Superman feels like a comic book come to life. It's not just about the Silver Age references,
Why?
colorful suits, or the actors looking just like their comic book versions.
Pretty
Since
close.
Other superhero movies have done all that and still didn't feel like reading a comic.
I still think Terry Hatcher's the best Lois Lane.
The real key is that Gunn brought in 3 major things from comics that we'd never actually seen in live action before.
All right.
The first one is how the story is told, because superhero comics have a totally different format than any other type of media.
Yeah.
If you grab Superman 27, the issue from this July written by Joshua Williamson, you'll see that Superman loses control because of red kryptonite and ends up fighting a superhero named Marilyn Moonlight. In the middle of all that, there's a bearded Lex Luthor and even a mech with a Superman logo.
Guys, I love Elseworlds comics, like where there's a medieval Superman, a Superman that's Batman. I love Superman and War of the Worlds. I love Elseworlds stuff. I like it when they mix stuff all up, as long as it's not canon. Let me know if you agree with the same way or if you just think they should mix it all up.
A lot to take in quickly so you can actually follow the story, since that issue picks up right where the last one left off.
Okay.
Same thing happens if you start reading other Superman comics like Action Comics or World's Finest. You just have to accept that stuff happened before that you didn't read, and probably never will, because superhero stories never really end.
Yeah, guys, almost 90 years of Superman comics. I don't know everything about it. People mention stuff all the time because it was when they were reading comics, and I'm like, I've never read that. I'm a Golden Age guy myself. I know a lot of that, and I know a lot of stuff from the kind of early 2000s, but there's a lot.
If you're starting a brand new run right after a universe reboot, there are always going to be callbacks to stuff from the past, sometimes from 40 years ago. It always feels like you're walking into a story that's already in progress. That's something pretty unique to comics, and it's got its ups and downs. Hardcore fans love it because it makes the stories feel deep and full of cool references. But for new readers, it can be pretty confusing, even if you start from issue 1 of a new run.
What I really don't like is like New 52 when they reboot it, but then they make all these stipulations like, well, this post-crisis happened, but this didn't, and I'm like, guys, either you're rebooting it or you're not. By the way, if you want to check out Mr. Headcanon's channel, his link for the video is in the description.
So confused.
Yeah, that's how new readers feel. We're like popping into a new story. There's all this stuff that's been going on for years, and you're like, I feel like I'm missing out on something really good.
Gunn did the exact same thing at the start of his movie. The first shots are in the Arctic, and there's a
it's hard to find past comics sometimes. Not as hard as it used to be.
short bit of text that catches us up on what's happened over the last 3 years.
Yeah.
From that, we learned that Clark has already been Superman for a while.
Okay, now we're making a pretty good point. He went on a whole spiel about what he was talking about, but now we're actually making a pretty good point. Do you think that James Gunn did a good job of setting us up in the middle of the story the way a comic book would? I think he did a good job. I heard a lot of people complain about, oh, we didn't even get an origin. Why would you complain about that? Why? A lot of the people that saw the movie and liked it were either people that were, comic book fans, or they were just people going to see the movie like a lot of people I know. And they didn't care about that. They just got caught up. They felt like, okay, I'm in it. I know what I need to know. That was a smart move. I don't know. Is it super comic booky, though? Are we often left out? I mean, he did a good job, though.
To seeing metahumans walking around, and Superman just lost his first fight against the Hammer of Baravia.
Yeah.
At first glance, it might feel like a Star Wars-style title crawl, or one of those short intros you see at the beginning of a superhero comic. For example, if you start reading Williamson's current run, there's a recap right on page 2. But what matters is that in the movie, this recap isn't just a fun little nod to the comics. It's absolutely necessary to understand what's going on.
I'm currently reading Superman Space Age.
There's no flashback showing Superman's origin, no explanation of where Lex Luthor came from, and we don't see how Clark and Lois fell in love. They don't show how Superman got involved in the Baravian conflict, or what went down in his first fight with the Hammer. There's not even a quick montage of Superman's past adventures, like Matt Shackman used at the beginning of First Steps.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even care. I don't even need that. The only montage I did want was a more day-in-the-life saving montage. I thought we might get something like that in this movie. We got saving montages, if you want to call them that, during like the kaiju fight and stuff. But we didn't actually get a day in the life. I love the day in the life saving montages. Like, oh, he's just stopping a robbery. Oh, he's helping a cat out of a tree. Or, oh, he's, something else common.
That might make you feel a little lost, because you're watching characters react to stuff you only read about in a quick recap. That's
Okay.
why a few people criticize the first 20 minutes of the film, saying it's missing the typical first act where the characters are slowly introduced, like you usually see in most superhero films. Even the Batman, which also skips over the origin story, feels more
So he's saying it was comic booky because that's what comic books do. Okay, I was getting a little confused, like, but comic books don't give you a nice recap. He's saying it, yeah, no, that was, but it did it well. I really do think he did it well. Not the greatest Superman movie in the world, in my opinion, but he did it well.
structured because you're following the Riddler's plan from the very beginning. But that sense of being a little lost that some people had while watching Superman is the same thing we go through when we start reading any superhero comic.
Well, now you know how I feel.
With this format, Gunn really sells the idea that this is a huge universe, just like DC's world in the comics, and that we're just dropping in on one of many adventures. Instead of wasting half an hour on a super boring intro we've already seen a million times, he throws us straight into the action.
Okay.
It's like opening up a random Superman issue you'd find at a comic shop right now. Sure, it might take a second to get used to if you're more familiar with how movies usually work, but like in comics, you don't need every single detail spelled out to follow the story. You don't have to be told every member's origin to know the Justice Gang are corporate heroes, and we don't even need a breakdown of their powers. Of course, Gunn borrowed a few comic-style tricks to help folks not get totally lost, like having Guy Gardner explain that he's a space cop sent to Earth by the Green Lantern Corps. It's not the smoothest or most natural line ever, but it works for people who've never heard of him.
I didn't think that was unsmooth myself. I have complaints about the movie, but that wasn't something that I thought was weird. I just thought, yeah, we kind of do need to know a little bit about you. And the reason he was saying it is because it was applicable,
It's the same kind of thing that happens
Applicable? I don't know.
in Superman issue 27 when we see Marilyn Moonlight. She gets a short intro just in case that's the first comic you've ever picked up.
Why do I not know this issue? This is not ringing a bell.
And you've got no clue who she is. The second thing Gunn brought in from the comics is the way other characters show up. Besides all the classic Superman villains and supporting cast, we also get Metamorpho, Mr. Terrific, Guy Gardner, and Hawkgirl. I'm not even gonna count Peacemaker and Supergirl since they only pop up for a quick scene. But the others play active roles, and they even had their own posters. Before the release, a lot of people were worried that Gunn was just using this movie to introduce a whole new superhero team instead of focusing on Superman's story. That could have been a mess.
Okay. Regardless of what he's about to say, do you guys think that Gunn did, in fact, use Superman as a tool to introduce this universe? I feel like he did a little bit. I would not feel that way if we were getting a direct Superman sequel, like, a Superman sequel. If we were getting that, I wouldn't feel that way. But instead, we're getting Superman Family Saga. I'm not too excited about that. I want a standalone Superman movie. I didn't like it whenever the trailer came out and there was all the other characters, but I wasn't worried that they would take up the movie, and I didn't feel like they took up the movie. But I would prefer that it just be Superman, like Man of Steel or Superman Returns or any of Christopher Reeve's movies. But I personally don't feel like they took away. You know what I mean? I don't feel like they did, but I am upset that now it's like he's being used as a tool to start this universe, and he's not going to have his own next movie. You know what I mean? He's not going to have a Superman 2, which I'm not happy about.
Just like in Batman v Superman.
Doesn't mean I won't like what he puts out. It just means it's one of those things I don't like.
But Gunn used the other heroes the same way they're used in comics. When a giant kaiju attacks the city, and Superman's struggling to stop it without anyone getting hurt, the Justice Gang shows up to help.
That is the biggest key when people talk about Superman and weakness and stuff. Oftentimes he struggles not against the foe, but struggles to make sure he stops the foe while not hurting anybody. Somebody like Homelander, for instance, wouldn't care about that part. It's like, no, I'm going to stop you, and I'm going to prove I can. Doesn't matter if somebody's hands get ripped off or their face incinerates. I'm going to stop you.
When Lois needs someone to rescue her boyfriend from Luthor's prison, she doesn't call the cops. Instead, she goes straight to the Justice Gang. When Metropolis is in danger because of a dimensional rift caused by Luthor, Mr. Terrific does the math and saves the day. And when Superman can't help the people of Jarhanpur because he's busy fighting his clone, Guy Gardner and the rest of the Justice Gang stop Baravia's army.
Sorry, kid. Superman couldn't make it, so you got an upgrade.
We never see this kind of hero teamwork in other live-action movies. No other superheroes show up to actually help out in the Batman, the Fantastic Four, or Thunderbolts. The only times we see team-ups are in full-on team movies like...
Well, when they don't have another team go and take care of the second problem, what you get is something like, yes, I'm going to say it, I'm going to dog it, Superman 1978, where instead of having somebody else come and help, he turns back time, which I know, Everybody always tells me when I use that phraseology, he didn't turn back time, he went back in time, which would make more sense because that means there would have been 2 of them to take care of the second rocket, which also never really gets explained. But I didn't like that either. You know what I mean? So I'm pretty much, I have stuff I'm unhappy about in every Superman movie. So
The Avengers, or buddy setups like Deadpool and Wolverine, where both names are in the title. But up until now, we'd never seen a standalone superhero movie where other heroes show up and do stuff. That's exactly how it works in pretty much any DC comic that takes place in the main universe.
That's true.
Other heroes show up because it's a shared universe where metahumans live side by side.
By the way, Batman vs. Superman was not a standalone Superman movie. This one was, which is weird because that's the way it works in Superman comics. Other people show up. I have a lot of them. It does happen.
It's also a smart way to
That's a
promote
cool shot.
lesser-known heroes by having them pop up in stories starring big names like Superman or Batman. For
Yes.
example, in Superman Unlimited issue 4 by Dan Slott, Superman heads to Metropolis to help out Jimmy Olsen. Of course, Robin shows up too, since he lives in that city. And when Clark turns into a
Robin.
super bat after getting bitten by Man-Bat, the
I heard Stan Lee talk about why he never did sidekicks because he's like, they would put these heroes in jail. They got these kids running around with them in, sheer danger. He's like, every time I see Robin, I giggle.
birds of prey come in to stop him. It's
Young Robin.
still a Superman story from start to finish, but other heroes step in to help, just like in the movie. This also fixes one of the biggest issues the MCU movies have. It makes
What's
zero
that?
sense that the Void threatens all of New York, and somehow Spider-Man, Daredevil, and Hawkeye are nowhere to be found. I get that those characters can't show up because it would steal the spotlight from the Thunderbolts, and Marvel has to deal with Sony for anything Spider-Man.
Did they not give any kind of one-liner like that other team is off-world or something? Like they could have done something. Did they not do that at all? Because like they explained, was it in the Supergirl movie that Superman was off-world? I don't know, but it's been done many times.
Related. But still, in Gunn's Superman, whenever there's a big threat in Metropolis, other heroes do show up to help, just like they would in a real shared universe.
Waited a long
Late. They show up late, and I just hit a key, and I have no idea if I may have screwed something up.
time for this team up.
And the third comic book trait, and probably the most important one, is how sci-fi concepts are used and how people react to them. The best superhero comics are packed with wild, mind-blowing ideas, like the Omniverse or the Ultimate Nullifier. But most movie adaptations try to ground those crazy ideas and explain them with fake movie science.
Y'all like
For
that
example,
movie?
the MCU spend a bunch of
pretty
scenes
decent.
trying to explain how PIM particles work, or trying to make time travel in Endgame make sense. DC movies have done it too, like when Snyder and Goyer explained that Superman's chest symbol isn't just an S for Superman. Instead, it was the Kryptonian symbol for hope.
I'm really glad they explained that too, because otherwise you wouldn't realize that Superman represented hope in part of those movies. Now, I'm not saying I don't like Man of Steel. I very much do like Man of Steel. I got Man of Steel. There's Henry Cavill right there. He's in places you can't see him. He's some of those toys up there. Very much like Man of Steel. I rate it pretty highly, but there's a lot, just like all the movies for me, there's stuff in it where I'm like, ah.
Or when Bruce had to buy the parts for his Batman suit from different international suppliers to make a Kevlar armor, instead of just sewing it himself, like in the comics. All of that stuff works fine to make the story feel realistic, but it also takes away from the crazy fun of comics. In the first issue of Superman Unlimited, Soup saves Earth from getting hit by a giant Kryptonite meteor. People are scared because they think the world's about to end, but they're not shocked that something like that's happening. And they're definitely not surprised Superman shows up to save the day, because that's just another
See, he shouldn't be able to do that. I get so mad about green kryptonite should render his powers inert, and it should just hurt him. Like in Smallville. Smallville did a really good job of showing most of the time how kryptonite should work.
Tuesday in the DC
And
universe.
look at how much there is.
So much wild stuff happens all the time that people are just used to it. Running into a superhero doesn't blow their minds because it's like seeing a celebrity on the street. Maybe it doesn't happen every day and you might tell your friends about it, but it's not impossible or unbelievable.
It takes an awful lot to surprise me.
Gunn brought this into his movie by showing that metahumans and weird creatures are totally normal in this world. In the first
Yeah.
act, when the hammer of Baravia knocks Superman down,
Baravia or Baravia? Put it in the comments.
people start snapping pics like they just ran into a celebrity. Then in the second act, a kaiju shows up in the middle of Metropolis. Some folks panic and run, but others just pull out their phones like they're watching a wild animal stroll down the street. One
You want to talk about comic booky stuff? Guys,
folks panic
this
and run, but
scene
others just pull out.
with the kaiju was the most comic booky scene ever. I absolutely loved it. Like a lot of people said that, the Guardians of the Galaxy stuff where they fought that battery eater thing on Guardians of the Galaxy 2, that this was going to be how this fight was. No, it wasn't. It was, now it did get killed from the inside. I just thought of that just now. But this was very much a Superman comic book style fight, the way it worked. Like, I really loved that fight. That To me, that fight brings out the best in the whole movie in a similar way that the plane scene in Superman Returns is like, that's the scene. That's what I want to see. I will say, though, the saving baby Joey thing, that's pretty awesome.
Out their phones like they're watching a wild animal stroll down the street. One guy's literally
My nose is
eating
itchy.
ice cream while watching Superman fight the kaiju, like he's rubbernecking at a car crash. That might seem a little off, because we wouldn't react like that in real life. But the thing is, this isn't real life. Just like in the comics, DC's world is full of made-up cities and wild events that would never happen in our world. This dude might have already seen like 5 kaiju in his life, so this isn't a big deal to him. And
Okay, question, guys. Question for you. Put it in the comments. Do you prefer it to be like real life, or do you prefer it to be like the comics? Which one do you want in your Superman movie? Now, obviously, if you're a Man of Steel fan, you're going to be like, that's what I want. And if you like this movie, you're going to be like, that's what I want. I like both movies. And I'm not really sure which I prefer, because with the Man of Steel movie, we took out all the other characters and made it realistic and just focused on, like, I really like that first contact, feel that it had. Like, this is the aliens, man. That was awesome. But with this one, I liked how, despite the fact that there were all these other superheroes, Superman was the focus, and he was the first one to get there. He was the last one they resorted to save things like Baby Joey, Metamorpho, and all his powers. He's like, you got to save him. I can't decide which I like better. So which one do you like better, realistic or comic booky for your Superman stuff?
if you're still not convinced, just look at how the media in the movie covers it. The news literally says the metahumans killed a thing, like it's just another Thursday. And
Yeah,
5
that's
minutes
true.
later, Luthor reveals the full message from Superman's parents, and everyone forgets about the kaiju like it was just a traffic accident.
Yeah, that was
Later
weird.
on, something
That was
similar
weird.
happens when Lois is talking to Clark in his apartment. In the
It's
background,
like he just saved you from a kaiju, and now you're like, oh, he's gonna grab up the women and start a harem. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, guys, he's been here for a while. Why would he put his life at risk like that? If you know what I mean? Like, that didn't really make a ton of sense how quickly they turned on him. Some people, yes, but there should have been like a group of Superman supporters with signs or something,
you can see the
But that would have given hope, and he kind of wanted you to feel hopeless. So I don't know.
Justice Gang fighting a giant dimensional imp, and Lois just kind of widens her eyes
Could be Mixius Spitalik. He didn't say fifth dimensional, but he did say dimensional imp.
a bit, but nothing close to how we'd react if we saw that in real life. Gunn turns the scene into a funny little moment to show that this kind of stuff happens all the time in the DCU. He makes it clear that Metropolis deals with this kind of chaos every day, so people are used to it, just like in the comics.
You look a little stressed.
Oh, I'm stressed.
This whole notion of normalizing the fantastic
I
goes
love
even
how that show has something Superman in every episode.
further. I love Nolan's Batman trilogy, but if good old Christopher had directed this movie, he would have spent 15 minutes explaining how Luthor created a pocket universe. Then he would have thrown in a whole montage to show that
The reason his movies were based on more realistic stuff. Like I loved how they explained why Batman made sense, how he got his stuff, how he did it without getting detected in those movies. And I loved in Man of Steel, even though Zack took over more, I loved that I thought they were going to explain how his powers worked and stuff because, Nolan was involved. That's not what they did. They just basically made it where if it were realistic, like, we don't know nothing about these aliens, but they're coming here and they're causing problems. It was very well done. I liked it.
the creation of Ultraman. And we'd also get a full-on TED Talk about how Luthor turned part of his tower into a ship.
He would have.
But Gunn just skips all that and shows us the ideas in action
I'm
instead
glad.
of wasting time with fake movie science.
Yeah,
if the
I'm
tone
glad.
of the movie were different, this would feel super weird because Lois and Jimmy instantly accept that Luthor created a pocket universe.
It wasn't the movie for that. It just wasn't the movie for that. Also, I want to see what she's got on her computer there.
It
She
feels
has a
super
little
weird
book
because
or something.
Lois and Jimmy instantly accept
A Better World, Lex Luthor. Huh? It's like a book he wrote or something. Interesting. I've never seen that before. Now I'm looking at all kinds of stuff, and I'm like looking at those boxes. What does that say?
that Luthor
Oh, there's a Justice Gang sticker
the
on the back
movie
of
were
somebody's
different,
computer
this
to
would feel
monitor.
super weird because Lois and
I'm getting
Jimmy
off track,
instantly
guys.
accept that Luthor created
Hold on. Oh well.
created a pocket
oh, well.
universe.
Put it in the
But
comments
since
if you
crazy
saw it.
stuff happens every 5 minutes, it makes sense that the characters roll with these wild sci-fi ideas. And since they accept it, we do too. Plus,
There it is. Oh dang, I missed it.
us, in most superhero movies, we barely see the heroes actually wearing their superhero costumes. Unless they're in tactical armor like the Thunderbolts, they're usually just dressed like regular people and only suit up when it's time to fight a supervillain. That's all about trying to make it feel more realistic, since walking around in a superhero outfit when you're off duty might just look like cosplay. The only recent movie where we see the hero heroes suited up nearly the whole time is Deadpool and Wolverine, and that's just because they're stuck in the void. Meanwhile, in Thunderbolts, Bucky literally spends the entire third act in a plain dark shirt instead of his Winter Soldier outfit. But in Guns
I didn't see Thunderbolts, but that's interesting. That would bother me if we did that with
Superman, every single Justice Gang member is in full costume every time we see them.
Because we are also of the cloth.
I love that line, guys. Okay, I did a poll, and I discovered I'm in the minority. I didn't think the movie had enough humor, personally. And I did a poll if the movie had enough humor, too much humor, perfect amount, what it was. And only like 2% out of like 1,000 or votes or something, or maybe 2,000, did people agree with me. So there's only like a handful of people out there that even agreed with me that it needed more humor. So I realized I'm in the minority on that.
If this were an MCU movie, they definitely would have dressed them in civilian clothes for the Hall of Justice scene, because they weren't using their powers there. And Guy Gardner would have been wearing street clothes in the diner scene, instead of rocking the full Green Lanterns.
I've seen that movie a couple times. I still can't remember the diner scene. I don't know why. Every time I see this, I'm like, I don't remember that. Did that happen? I've seen it multiple times.
But thankfully, they look like superheroes all the time, just like in the comics. When the Justice League shows up to visit Superman after he stops the Kryptonite asteroid, they're all in costume, not in regular clothes. If you think this is just a silly detail, I actually timed how long Corn Sweat wears the Superman suit in the movie. It's 26 minutes in a 2-hour film. Meanwhile, Cavill only wore the suit for 8 minutes in Man of Steel.
Well, but he wasn't Superman yet, though. They only said the word one time, I think, in the whole movie. Of course, he didn't wear it as much. And he did a lot of saving outside of the suit. That was Birthright. I was about to say Brightburn. That was not Brightburn. That was Birthright. That's how they did it. I mean, if that's a complaint, that's a dumb complaint, because it's like, of course he didn't wear it much, but I do get what he's saying. It's a very comic book movie, and it's going very comic book. That movie was not comic book.
And that movie runs 2 hours and 20 minutes. But if Gunn's movie is so good, and it nailed the feel of a superhero comic better than any adaptation before, why did it make less money than Man of Steel? I explained that in this video.
Didn't know this was a popularity contest.
We're going to have to watch that video, guys. We might do that this week, so be looking out for it. And if I do have that video already, it'll be right here. Otherwise, you can check out this video right here.